Welcome back to the Afterword table. Last week, we gained insight into the ways women empower other women and why the stories we share are vital for sustainable equality. Our guests are former First Lady of South Carolina, Rachel Hodges, and Chef Erin Nobles of the Silver Spoon in Columbia. And they're joining us again. Could you give us an example of how you see the empowerment of one woman elevating all women in communities and cultures and global economies?
Well, I feel like it'll be a chain reaction. You know, as it becomes more normal on a local level, it's only going to keep growing from there. So I just think we all have to do our part on a local level to just raise awareness and make it happen. And I think as it becomes bigger on a local level, it will just continue to grow.
What do you think, Rachel?
It's also, as Erin has mentioned before, in regards to her work and sharing, right? Erin mentioned how she reaches out to other bakers and says, you know, okay, I think you should do this work, whatever it may be, right, Erin? And yeah. you're spreading the wealth, you're sharing the connections of potential clients to your business. Mm-hmm. The relationships that are being built are positive ones, not only for you professionally, but for the clients who you're trying to serve. They feel good about it because they know what they want and that it's not a competition. And you're right. The more that seeps into the culture, the more positive attitude things have that come back to you. And if I can give you one description about City of Women, it would be the impression of Solnit's work on me. And what is that translated into? That translated into the inspiration she gave me, develops into an idea, that develops into a collaboration between two nonprofit organizations, that develops into a movement called the Columbia City of Women, that identifies with historical context 20 women who are unsung heroes, who most people didn't know their name or what they had done, that creates two maps that covers all of these women on these two maps over a period of just 2 years, with two major events hosted. And we also have a street sign that has been dedicated by the City of Columbia to one of our honorees, Matilda Evans, who was the first licensed woman physician in Columbia. So that's just one thread that, you know, you start pulling from my reading and receiving a map. And when you start pulling that thread and you think of all of the people who have been touched by just that one moment of my son giving me a map, right? And that thread gets pulled and all of these people are connected to that thread, and it just keeps on getting pulled and pulled and pulled. And everybody that comes as a result of that connection is made more and more aware of the power of women in our city and what they're capable of.
I love that answer, and I love that idea. Can I push back on it just a little bit, though?
Absolutely. Go ahead. I'm ready for you, Holland. Go ahead.
There's another little podcast that's almost as good as ours. It's called Revisionist History, and the host is Malcolm Gladwell. And in the very first episode that he did, it was called The Lady Vanishes. And he said, this is the $1 million question. When does doing good lead to doing bad? And when does doing good lead to doing more good? And this is what he wrote, or this is what he said on his podcast. That's what we expect. It fits our romantic notion of progress. The door opens for one person, and soon it opens for everyone. But what we have to understand is that a lot of times the opposite happens. The door opens for one person, and they're the only one to slip in. Those who open the door then feel free to close it again for everybody else. Do you think that happens sometimes when you talk about the history of women's empowerment, that there was this one woman and everybody says, oh, look, she did, and then that's the end of the story of women leading in that particular sector?
I am so glad you brought this up, because this has been the yin and yang of that discussion within our own committee, because Gladwell is exactly right. And, as I said before, we're all human, and you have to have a starting point somewhere. Is it going to be perfect? No. Is everybody going to like it? Absolutely not. But does it cause people to think, right? And isn't that the point of history and art and statues and murals? And it causes people to look and think and be moved and have a conversation, ask questions. So, yeah, you're exactly right. Are all of our honorees perfect? I'm very proud of all of them, but I'm sure there were some rocky roads to the goals that they finally achieved, because there's no straight line.
Yeah.
You mentioned this idea of art and the stories teaching us something. And so for both of you, I'll nod to Rachel first. How does education and vocational training support women? And what are some of the trends you would like to see in the future?
Well, number one, access to quality education. First of all, it depends on where you live, right? And access to college education, that's a quality education for women, is better now than it was in the past, right? So the more that women can identify with what their skills and I wish I had known some of these things before I went to college, because I wish I had had a clear vision, like Erin does, of what she loves to do. But we're not all that lucky. But I think the more women can define their skills and find something that really pulls at their interest and their heart, whether that's a technical school or going on to a 4-year degree, I think they have to follow their own path. But I do think that there are so many opportunities for women to make a life for themselves in a healthy, happy environment, but they can only get there with an education, whether that's 4-year college or a technical college degree.
What do you think about the? This isn't in the script either, but I'm really interested in this question. What do you think about the challenge that a lot of women that I hear talking about now are like? For a long time, the idea was, let's increase the number of women who are graduating from college. Okay, we did that. There are now more women graduating from college than men. But graduating from college isn't the same thing as having a career or vocation that allows you to be either influential or allows you to support a family. And so women are still graduating with either degrees in pink-collar careers or degrees that don't have much vocational utility. And so yes, technically she has a bachelor's degree, and that's good. But if that bachelor's degree is going to continue to be in low-paying fields or no-paying fields and not in fields where women can lead, influence, or earn a good living, we haven't made it yet, and we aren't really talking about the important issues, or am I wrong?
No, you're right. I think you're right. And I think it gets back to Gladwell's comment about it closes the door behind you, because there are so many women who have done what the experts said. The experts said, go get a 4-year degree, work really hard, do all of these over-the-top achievement things, and you will be sure to have a top-flight position in, fill in the blank when you come out of college. And that is not the case. No, it is not the case. So that's a big question. That's another whole podcast topic, right?
It is.
That's another whole podcast to talk about the opportunities for women who achieve a higher education and the doors that are slammed to the opportunities they thought that were going to be presented to them, and the financial opportunities that they thought would be presented to them if they had achieved these things. So we'll have to call me back. We'll have another podcast.
Yeah, but that does kind of follow the last part of that question is what are the trends you'd like to see for the future? So Erin, I want to give you a chance to pop in. What would you like to see for the future?
One trend that I see now that I love, and it kind of seems silly when I first heard it, but it's the girl boss narrative. You know, like it's cool to be a girl boss and you can have your business and run it. And sometimes you might just have to make your own path that a traditional, go to college and then find a job might not be what happens. And you might have to, hustle and build your own business out of something that maybe you didn't even really think. I think about Uniquely MC. She didn't think that she would go to college and then make handbags, but she makes the most beautiful handbags, and she's made face masks for me during this time. And, I think as things change in the world, you're not just going to be guaranteed a great job right out of college, and you might have to just kind of figure it out and be a girl boss.
I've never heard that phrase. I love that. Is that girl ball? BALL?
Boss. BOSS. Girl boss.
Oh, boss. Girl boss. Oh, I love that.
Who's the CEO who did that? Girl boss. Like that's her thing.
Yeah. I can't think of her name, but it's like a hashtag, and that's a big thing. Like being a girl boss is a positive thing to say now, and I think that's great.
Well, and let me add to that, Erin, because you make an excellent point that might be misinterpreted in what I said before. College education and a technical education is very important, right? But we are in the middle of something extremely difficult in this pandemic that is going to have lasting effects on everything. And I'm not an economist. I'm not a professional in any way, but I don't claim to be. But I know the effects of what we're experiencing today are going to have long-term effects on how we view what's important in the future. I have great hope, and I'm very optimistic about the so-called expectations that society places on people about how they should move forward. But those things are going to change. They have to change because going forward, a college education is extremely expensive and will probably be out of reach for most young women. But when you say girl boss to me, I hear so much opportunity there for women who have identified, I'm good at this, and I'm going to carry on, and I'm going to do this for my future. And forget what the rules say you're supposed to do. Just press on and do that. And I think that's one element of the younger generation of women who just, they forge their own path. And I am so excited about what the opportunities hold for them in the future because they press on with determination and fortitude, and they don't let anybody get in their way. And I'm all for the girl boss.
Sounds like there might be another section on the City Women map.
I know, we need to do that.
The
right.
girl boss section.
Going from entrepreneurs and business and over into politics for just a minute. In most countries, including ours, political positions available for women seem pretty limited. In fact, in 2017, women held only 20% of the seats in the U.S. Congress. How can we reframe or retell the stories of women in politics in ways that empower and encourage more women to step into that arena? Rachel, you'll have to jump in on this one.
That is a loaded question. You keep asking these loaded questions, Holland, because the question about women in politics is loaded because I think that we desperately need women in politics. Desperately. But when you look at the reality of a campaign and what it takes to be a candidate, your spouse, your children, your parents, your uncles, your aunts, everybody has to be on board, right? Everybody. And it is a very demanding life. And I admire women who are willing to take that step into that arena, because they are, in my book, there's no female braver than a female candidate that's willing to do that, to run that campaign, be a candidate, and hold whatever office that they are aspiring to. It's not easy. I don't know what the answer is to your question. I do have respect and admiration for them when they do it, when they choose to run. But I think a lot of things in current day politics have to change before we see a more equitable opportunity for women in politics.
Can you think of one thing that might be a tipping point change that would be more supportive for adding women into the race?
The vast amount of money, in my opinion, that go to running a campaign is obscene. And that's on all levels. It's an obscene amount of money. And you have to raise it to be a relevant candidate, to get your face and name and image and your platform in front of people. But it's an obscene amount of money that we spend on politics in this country. And until that changes, I'm afraid we will be challenged by the candidates that we have to choose from.
Well said. Well, Erin, as a business owner, what is the impact on empowerment of women's health issues as a result of higher wages, employment, and leadership? Because we've kind of touched a little bit on all the different areas of education, politics, and, I'm going to start with you first, Erin. What about health for women?
So my staff is all female. We have always, it's just happened that way. We've always had female staff. So I feel like as a business owner, I have to lead by example. I think women's health issues are so important, and I know how difficult it can be to have a child and stay in the workforce. And I feel like, I've had issues where employees have wanted to come back to work, but then they've realized that the cost of childcare is basically the same as how much they would make as, working. So it's an issue as far as wages and payment. I pay my employees a very fair wage. I always have, because I know how expensive healthcare is. I know how expensive it is to live. So I am trying to set an example, but as a small business, it's not always easy. I just think the standards need to be higher for all businesses.
Well, we have one final question that we ask all of our guests, and it's this: what's a metaphor that helps us understand how women can equip, engage, and empower women? Whoever wants to go first, let us have your metaphor.
Okay, I'll go first, Rachel, so you can think of yours, because mine came very easily to my mind. I like to think of it as a recipe, but, like you're making a cake, but you don't have a recipe. So you have all the ingredients in front of you. You have the flour, butter, eggs, sugar, you're leavening, but you don't have the recipe for the final product. And every single ingredient is important, and every ingredient has a part to play. And if it's not put together, in the recipe, the cake won't turn out. But when they all work together in the right portions, you end up with a cake at the end. So it's just like putting together a cake without a recipe. We all have to work together so that the final product will be spectacular.
Brilliant.
Erin, I'm so glad we're on this podcast together, Erin, because mine's food. Let me tell you why. Okay, my metaphor is a mushroom. A mushroom grows in the forest, in the shady spaces, and you know how a mushroom grows. One pops up here and one pops up there. But what you don't see when you walk into the forest and see mushrooms, what you don't see is the vast connectivity of mushrooms underneath the surface. Underneath the surface is where all the mushrooms connect, and that's where they thrive, and then they push up into the light. And those mushrooms are a metaphor for women.
Oh my goodness. Those are beautiful metaphors.
Aren't they?
Not that I would want cake and mushrooms at the same time. But those were beautiful. Oh my goodness. Thank you all so much for joining us at the table. Erin, tell us a little bit about Silver Spoon. Where can they find your information?
They can find us online. We're very into Instagram. That's kind of our main social media platform. It's Silver Spoon Bakeshop on Instagram or silverspoonbakeshop.com. And that has all the information to take you wherever you need to go. But we are currently only doing a once-a-week pre-order, so the inside of the shop is not currently open, but we are still making baked goods for pickup one day a week.
Wonderful. How about you, Rachel? Where can people find out about you?
They can find out about the Columbia City of Women through our website, Columbia City of Women, or on Instagram, Columbia City of Women.
Okay. That's new information. I didn't realize that was also on Instagram. Going to have to go check that.
It just went up like 2 days ago. So, Erin, go on Instagram.
I'll follow
like
you.
it.
I will.
Hey, I got to learn how to use it, so give me some time.
Okay.
There you go. Well, thank you all so much for joining us here tonight. We've had a fabulous conversation with Erin Nobles and Rachel Hodges, and please join us next week as we talk about virtual education, which is a hot topic right now, and student engagement. While you wait, please leave us a review, rate us on iTunes and Apple Podcasts, become a subscriber to the Afterword podcast. It does help keep the conversation going. And as always, remember, you are welcome at our table.